Today in news tech, using Google's autocomplete function, looking for what people also ask and people also search to improve SEO. Hearing from David Cohen on media innovation. Looking at the numbers, print newspapers lost 20% of print circulation in the last year, but digital subscriptions are still on the rise. And lastly, tapping into the value of your newspaper archives.
Okay, so our first article is from Search Engine Journal, what Google's enhanced autocomplete box means for SEO. So here's a bit of our take on that.
SEO considerations for Google's new autocomplete feature. Today we're highlighting a piece by Christopher Jones over at Search Engine Journal about Google's testing of a new autocomplete feature on its search page. The article, What Google's Enhanced Autocomplete Box Means for SEO, discusses the presentation of additional results, including people also ask and people also search. Many SEO professionals probably noticed the new feature and believe they know what Google is up to. There's a way that SEO experts can leverage the enhanced autocomplete to perform keyword research and topic research. Christopher Jones. Here are a few of the big takeaways. Clicking back in the search bar after an initial query reveals a larger autocomplete box with people also ask and people also search, providing topics directly related to your initial search. The included PAA and PAS topics provide a wealth of information for SEO engineers to research how certain terms perform so that adjustments can be made to improve search results. The autocomplete enhancements tell marketers a wealth of information in terms of topic research and gathering insights into how a general user finds things through Google search. Managing a publisher website's SEO can be a tricky endeavor, which is why all websites hosted by our hometown include a sophisticated SEO dashboard allowing for extensive control of how site content appears in search results.
That is interesting. So basically reverse engineering how the Google algorithm works by using this people also ask.
This is certainly in beta test since December. And so when I went and checked it, it doesn't quite behave exactly like some of the results seen here in the original article. This is what the screen cap looks like. So I actually just brought this up. So just to kind of show you what we're talking about first is what this actually looks like. So once again, I'll do one of my famous Rochester, New York.
Yeah.
Not even news, just Rochester, New York. I'm not going to click on any of the suggested things because this is an autocomplete that's already existed. So if I hit enter and get the normal search results page, which is just the organic thing, if I go back and click in the search bar again, look at the difference. They're now including local institutional things as people also search for. The one thing that I'm not seeing is people also ask for. So the PAA is not in this interface like it was mentioned in the source article, but the people also search for.
Well, can you type a question? People also ask. Maybe that's where
what is the best gym in Rochester, New York? Okay, and so this is just the organic search. That's the one that comes up first, the one we're used to. And if I click back in, we don't get like maybe it's too specific or something. That's one of the things that they were saying over here. Google's pulling the top 3 people also ask questions and people also search. Right now, it looks like it's only pulling, at least for my searches, the people also search.
Right.
And then, of course, the normal related terms that are actually in the pull down.
Let's try to do an example for like a real newspaper that we work with and just see.
Well, one of mine is Gulf Breeze. So news Pensacola.
Right.
And
so
I'll
this
even
is
put
exactly a step-by-step exercise that each paper can do. They search news in their city.
So we've got the social carousel that we pointed out before. That's here. And then it looks like a TV station. And I'm just scrolling down because Gulf Breeze is our paper down there.
Right.
And they're not showing up in this version. So let me go back in here. Let me just get rid of the news again. And if I just do an organic search on Pensacola, okay, here you go. Well, now we've got it. All right.
So that didn't come up before when you did news?
Yeah, it didn't have the people also ask. So this one's got the ask on there. Even though I just did Rochester, New York, versus Pensacola, Florida. This one actually has, and maybe it's just because it's a more popular, Pensacola as a beach destination and all that. And so you've got Destin, Pensacola Beach, and then you've got Southwest Airlines, because Google's thinking if you're doing a search for Pensacola, Florida, you might be thinking of flying there. And it just builds upon this related terms thing.
Well, the terms. Okay. So I guess the idea is that search term is something that the newspaper would make sense for them to come up there, right? Just searching for the town. So you could look for these terms and then just focus more on this type of content, like weather. This is a reason to have a weather widget on your site. Is that the idea? Discuss things to do in Pensacola. So, maybe have
let me flip back over to the article. And so once they get through kind of what the function is and what it's kind of displaying, the next section is using the enhanced autocomplete box for keyword and topic research.
Right.
And a big
to cover.
Yeah, exactly. And a big one here is if you're a pizza, and this is, they go through a retail outlet
this is
instead
more
of
for business SEO. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. But if someone's doing local news or things like that, it shows the difference between the autocomplete, where it's got Domino's, Papa John's, these are like chains, versus the organic results, which give you the map and where you can get pizza right now. So it's kind of differentiating between someone researching pizza as a concept versus someone researching pizza as nutrition, and how the SEO managers can then go in here and do keyword research and see what do you have to put down, assuming that your SEO is good enough to get you to appear in a localized search, right? So that's one of the things is you got to get scraped, but then you can use this enhanced keyword search to kind of refine any other keywords that you might use in headlines, or as you said, more emphasis on a particular category of content that seems to draw more related, or also search for, also ask for types of things. Like up here in Rochester, a big one is what's the latest snowfall total, that kind of thing.
Sure.
So if you're if you want to get listed in Rochester about some of those kind of things, like a business that does driveway, whatever, that's the kind of stuff that you'd want to make sure is added to your SEO stuff.
And I'm just doing a search here too, and everyone else on the call, why don't you try it for your area? Okay. See if you can get this working. But Chris, could you just go to Google one more time and just type in local news, Salt Lake City, and then you go up and click that search bar again. So this is the same list I get.
And what's interesting here is what happens when you follow these. If you follow the train, look what starts to happen. Because I just did Draper, Utah, which is a little smaller, and now I've got their Twitter carousel. So it's very like I said, the coverage of this is introducing it as definitely a beta feature that they've just been testing, and the article just kind of covers this offers some really interesting opportunities for SEO people for their research.
Oh yeah, no, I think it's always great to point out the countless tools Google has out there. They have Google Trends that you can search, get a sense of what their data is showing and apply it to countless different situations, for marketing.
So here's another one. I just did Chapel Hill, another North Carolina, and it gives us the 3 top basketball schools right there. Seem to be, because that's something that area is known for. So of course that would come up in they also search. That's very interesting.
Right. Yeah. The other thing that I sometimes think about is, really just practically, how do I search for local news? It's usually a specific thing, for the summer, wildfires sometimes popping up. So searching for things like that. What other things do you guys search for in your day-to-day when looking for local news? Can we identify some use cases that we can just run through a case study of how to reverse engineer that? You know what I mean?
I look for weather
local
or
sports, maybe. Yeah, local weather.
Local government.
I was going to say local high school sports.
Yeah, I just searched that. If you're looking for ideas on different headlines, you can try multiple different headlines based on what people are searching for, creating a new category. I'm just thinking what's the most practical way to apply this information? The quickest way that an actual newspaper could use autocomplete to drive more traffic.
Doesn't Port A don't they have a tides chart?
That's a great example of just something that I never would have thought of, but just as a user in each community. Yeah, it's simple. As a publisher, though, you need to think of yourself as a user. What are the things that people are searching for? Do it in Google and look at, the other things that are recommended, the different things that it's called or that people are calling it when they're looking for it. And then work that into the language and articles.
I did a search for my school.
Right.
And what are the things that people really want to know about it? Is it hard to get into?
Right.
What's its ranking and what's it known for? But this, once again, is like a competing institution. It is an interesting thing of trying to find out how to get your coverage. Like if you were doing an expose on Eastman School of Music or something, it might be interesting to include, maybe there's a subsection on the alumni majors, some of these things that actually pop up that would get the scraper to pick you up.
That's a pretty solid example right there. You're trying to promote a local business in a sponsored post or something. What kind of things are people searching for right now? If Google's recommending it, it's because they recommended it in the past and the person clicked on it. And then it has this positive feedback loop. And, that's all the machine learning that's going on in the background. So yeah, this is a very creative way to improve SEO and drive traffic using, just freely available tools on Google.
Well, and I think you can also do a little bit of browser bashing where you go to a site and you can basically look and see what their SEO backend looks like as it's delivered on the HTML.
Right.
And so technically you could see what they're doing. And then once you do a related search like this and you find out who's popping up really high, you do a little extra digging to see out maybe why. So this next article is from journalism.co.uk, and they invited the co-founder of Subtext, an SMS sub-platform, to share a little knowledge. So let's take a listen.
Media innovation, 5 lessons from a chief strategist. Today we're highlighting a piece by Subtext co-founder David Cohn over at journalism.co.uk, in which he provides several lessons learned over a career in research and development. The article, 5 Lessons Every Media Innovator Needs to Learn, presents 5 insights into managing innovation, experimentation, and expectation when developing new ideas. Highlights from the 5 lessons. While a good idea can give inspiration and direction, it is the execution of the idea that matters, especially the recognition of when a strategy is not working. Acknowledge the effects of networks, be they digital, personal, business, etc. As an idea grows and awareness grows, engagement increases. Noting the competition can be beneficial, however, concentrating on one's own product development prevents distraction and needless feature comparison. Leadership requires managing expectations both of colleagues as well as oneself. Be your best, but do not be a hero. A minimum viable product that is being tested and generating valuable feedback is cheaper than spending countless hours debating. You do not need exact coordinates when you start to chase down an idea. David Cohn, co-founder and chief strategy officer of Subtext.
All right.
Yeah.
So basically what I did here is I did a little paraphrase, boil down of each of his 5 lessons. So that's fine for this presentation, but I always like to go to the horse's mouth here. And he's got basically a nice little catchphrase of his own. And then I just kind of did a little bit of a summary of what each of these are. And I know this kind of fits in with some of the things we have talked about in regards to innovation in some previous coverage. So I just thought we might just use these as a quick springboard to either revisit some of that stuff or find something a little different from that. Number 1 was ideas are cheap, execution is everything.
Yeah, I'm going to say something that we'll probably touch on later. When you say execution is everything, it's like, okay, what exactly does that mean? I think the thing that we learned from Damien last week is it's about testing and having something to measure and just adjusting course, giving your idea enough time to develop, but not just blindly marching forward. And that ties into the 5th point of the minimum viable product. Just get something out there that people can try and have a good feedback loop.
Stop debating, start testing. Just start testing stuff, because then that'll give you direction.
Yeah. I mean, we could talk about the audio articles product is a good example of this. We had to get it out there to get the volume of articles created and find engaged users that are going to give us feedback to improve it. Keeping it in a box and just developing and try to figure out what people will like and imagine what they like is never going to be as good as just getting it out there. And I also just like the second point about the value of networks.
It goes right to what you were just saying with the audio articles. The more people that are using them and are talking about it, the more people will have interest.
Right. Yeah. And then you can start to get metrics from users. And I mean, we have more metrics than we know what to do with at this point. So I think we need to focus on that in parallel while we're developing products, rather than just.
Yeah. It's a cyclical process. It kind of feeds back into itself as a new feature grows and more people hear about it.
Yeah. And so the value of networks, I also look at it with today in news tech, all these connections that we're making on social networks, like literal networks, that's just allowed us to develop the brand a little bit and the tone of the conversation, and also generates content because then I'm having these hour-long interviews with people. Yeah. Any other comments you guys want to add to this? Or Chris, you have anything else?
Well, I guess this one, it was a little hard to figure out how to kind of boil this one down, to keep your head down, because he's saying two things. It's like you want to be aware of the competition, but you don't want to get manipulated into some sort of feature back and forth where you end up chasing the competition instead of actually fulfilling the original idea that you started with.
Focusing on the mission. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So you want to make sure. And then he even mentions, of course, that if you kind of develop in your own way with your own brand, and there's a similar venture that's out there, they can actually be complementary in growing that market as a unit, with both contributing instead of the competition kind of trying to erase one or the other.
Well, one thing I learned in the interview with Katerina yesterday, she talked about how her success with messaging is really, she tried to fill a hole that wasn't being covered, in traditional legacy news, which is the positive news. And she called it also solutions journalism, which is a very popular term these days.
I've been seeing that quite a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. This is an interesting concept. We get into it quite a bit with her, where it's all about, instead of just reporting crime, you're talking about the bigger issue that may be causing the specific crime incidents, and you're focused on finding solutions. It's almost like you don't cover things unless you have a solution to present along with it. And I actually think that's kind of what we're doing a lot with today in news tech. We're doing it for the journalism industry. It's solutions journalism, where we just talk about things that seem to be working. We talk about big tech, the moves that they're making against us, and how you can combat them with not depending on any one network or, whatever it is. My point here is that she didn't try to chase, it bleeds, it leads kind of thing, that mentality, because that's what the major metro is already doing. And she left that organization to start her own thing.
It's both measuring yourself positively and negatively, because she didn't want to do what the competitors were doing. She wanted to do something completely new.
Right. Exactly. I think a lot of interesting people talk about this, like some innovators that have podcasts that I'm interested in. It's competition is for losers, is what they say. It's like, you don't want to just copy and then just try to do it better. You really want to focus on doing something different, innovative, automate things that are being done manually now, whatever it is. You want to just focus on being different whenever you can. So that's why I'm really proud of the audio articles feature, the things that we're doing with related stories, document comparison, and trying to do the ranking. There's really not a lot of people focused on that. So that does set us apart. And of course, the extraction that we've been doing for decades is a unique feature. Anything else you want to
just to kind of wrap up this? The one was just more of a personal kind of leadership thing, because we already talked about the testing. But the other thing was just, knowing how to manage when you're in the push of a new idea, how to both manage your colleagues, your staff, and also manage yourself, so that you don't burn everything, because that can also kill any kind of growth of a new idea too, is if you're burning out your creatives to try to get it done.
I guess that kind of reminds me of something Damien said. Anything that you start, any new idea, means you're going to have to give up something else. You can't just be everywhere all the time. You have to recognize that first. Your time is limited. Just look at your workflow now realistically, the best predictor of the future is the past. So what have I been able to sustain in terms of projects each week? I got to give one of those up if I'm going to take on TikTok or something, whatever the new project is. Yeah, that's interesting, Chris. I appreciate that one. Let's switch it over to Tyler for these last two articles.
So yeah, this was just a overview that I found of what's been going on with subscriptions, looking at trends, that kind of thing. There's just some interesting stats that I thought would be good to dig into.
All right.
Subscription growth in 2021. Today, we're highlighting a piece by Esther Keziah-Thorpe over at What's New in Publishing that breaks down the trends among publication subscription models over the past year. The article, The Year in Subscriptions, A Growth Story, discusses the ways subscriptions have been implemented throughout the industry and how readers are responding to them. While subscriptions are a fast-growing segment of the industry, many outlets are taking action to make sure the trend continues. The majority of publishers who rely on subscriptions are now turning their attention to data to get smarter about increasing conversion rates and learning more about their existing subscribers, said Esther Keziah-Thorpe. Here are a few of our big takeaways. Magazines have been very resilient, with the top 50 brands experiencing a 70% increase in digital subscriptions while losing only 7% of their print circulation. Print newspapers have lost 20% of their print circulation in the past year, but digital subscription numbers are still on the rise. A report from Piano suggests that digital subscriptions started after March 2020 have been better at retaining readers. Digital subscriptions are more necessary than ever for publications to create sustainable business models. Because of this, Our Hometown developed customizable digital subscriptions for its WordPress platform so that newsrooms can have complete control in deciding how to monetize their content.
Wow. Couple of interesting things there. I think the headline that I'll do at the beginning is 20% reduction in print circulation, but digital subscriptions are still on the rise. It's a trend that we've seen and we keep hearing about, of course, being accelerated. And this thing about after March 2022 specifically, right? That was
right.
Kind of funny.
There it is. Digital subscriptions are up a massive 70% over the last 2 years.
70?
I think that's just for magazines.
Oh, it's just magazines.
Oh, you're looking at that first stat. Right. Okay. Yeah.
That raises a question, though. I mean, we've had a couple newspapers that have switched to a more magazine format. I wonder, what the difference is. Is it just the format? Is it the content, a mixture?
The answer came from Fort Myers, right? In your interview with Payson, talking about the way that he almost sees the Florida Weekly publications as a magazine with longer stories and the way they handle their layout and stuff like that. Yeah, I think it has a lot to do with the depth of the coverage and the topics.
But there's also, he's a very good salesman. I mean, that's the other thing. It's like, it's just the constant balance. I think page numbers have gone down because ad counts are going down. I don't know. Is it better to go monthly and have a higher page count? I guess I'm trying to get to your question, Terry, and answer it. Like, how could a newspaper become more magazine-like to take advantage of this? Is it the content or is it the frequency? You know what I mean? What is it about it that's led to a 70% increase?
Yeah, I wasn't really expecting an answer on that. I just think maybe that's something we should do some further research on. I mean, how do we grab that market for our publishers?
Right.
Let's do it.
Any other takeaways for our publishers on this that we want to highlight?
I really think that big one was just the print subscriptions being down and the magazine ones being up by that degree.
Yeah, that is a good number. Let's take a look at your last story then.
And I think this next one might actually point us in a direction of answering that magazine resiliency question. All right, so this is about a model train magazine that decided last year, after like 70 years in publication, it was going to have digital archives, and it's going really well.
The real value of digital archives. Today, we're highlighting a piece by What's New in Publishing about the model train enthusiast magazine, Railway Modeler, and its newly launched digital archives. The article, Railway Modeler, highlights the revenue potential of digital back issues, discusses the trends that have emerged around reader demand for archival news media. The 7-decade-old publication had not made digital back issues available until the summer of 2021 and has seen a dramatic increase in traffic after introducing the feature. The average number of page views of Railway Modeler's digital editions increased by 664%, said What's New in Publishing. Here are a few of our big takeaways. Since launching archives, Railway Modeler has seen a 54% increase in web subscriptions and a 20% increase in in-app subscriptions. The digital subscription service Riadley reports that 22% of their UK subscribers regularly access back issues. The most popular archive content tends to be evergreen subjects like recipes, car reviews, and craft patterns, but significant historical events are also a big draw. Archival content is important for both a business perspective and for the interest of preserving history. Because of this, Our Hometown gives publishers the ability to upload their paper's full archives and add them to subscription paywall services to ensure that this content is seen as the valuable element that it is.
You know, one thing I see with this write-off is having your archives available is that gives that final nudge to people who are deciding whether or not they really want to invest monetarily in the newspaper. Do they want to subscribe? Okay, maybe they're drawn to the article either through a search engine or, you know, a personal recommendation, but going to see what the paper actually has covered in the past might just encourage them to actually, you know, pull out their wallet.
That's why I just think it's so important, this feature. And I keep talking about related articles. You know, it's a subtle thing,
Right.
but, you know, that really has the potential to.
We can change how the related how the related articles can,
right.
Maybe there could be a tick box to include archives. So if they kind of go back and just,
or weigh it differently, like more archives or less. I don't know if people would be interested in that. I mean, I definitely would be, but I just think driving people back to the archives, you're right, Terry, if we can show them a relevant article related to something that's happening now, then it brings them back into the archives. It's suddenly this whole world opens up, you know, this whole history.
Even if the archives are behind a paywall, if you have the thumbnail of cover pages, then you could actually market that as some, you know, an ad, create a display ad that says, look at what we cover, see what we've.
Well, a lot of papers have a what happened on this day in history or what did we cover in our paper on this way in history. But if those actually linked into the coverage,
right.
So you can have a weekly article on that, what's happened, but you can actually then link it to the archives. And then if you, that's one way of saying if you don't have access to the archives, you could upsell it for that kind of thing.
Well, here's a question I have. Like, why aren't publishers doing that? Referring to old articles in new articles. You look at places like TechCrunch, they're constantly referencing other articles that they've written and keeping you engaged on the site. And that's a manual thing. It'd be nice if we could automate it with the related stories, but even linking within the article itself, I think would be really interesting, right? That's something, it's an editorial decision.
I think a lot of the problem is it's an old school mentality that just comes from that not being easy to do. I don't think a lot of papers realize that this is the way things can function now.
And also, so many of them are not even putting the articles in. So they're not logged into the site. They don't really have that opportunity. I mean, they could easily go do it, but it's not right in front of them and it's not really part of their workflow. I mean, I almost think that's what we need to be doing. Like these related stories at the bottom of an article are helpful, but I think we would get more engagement if somehow we could identify, and this would be some pretty sophisticated NLP, but like you would have to identify this article is about this person, and this is the article that is ranked highest for that keyword, and just link to it right in the article.
If you want another technical challenge to index the PDFs that are in the archives,
right.
That's what I was wondering.
It's possible to do that. I mean, it won't give you any kind of formatting or anything, but it would give you some related links, I guess.
It would give you.
And I've actually, like recently, I've had potential customers wanting that functionality specifically. So
to search PDFs, right? Yeah. This Railway, is this a PDF viewer or because it's all these archives? Most of the time, I bet you it's just a PDF.
Looks like they have a killer app on mobile.
And it could be a really good experience, even though it's just PDFs.
You know, I'm always looking for ways that publishers can take this knowledge back to their own newsroom.
Right.
And one thing is, you know, you got to have that first step. What if we encourage publishers to just put a blurb, you know, either next to their page number or at the very bottom of the page that says, check out our archives and link the actual archive tab?
Well, I'm just thinking about like user experience. I don't see myself ever going to an archive page and just browsing archives. Want to search for a term.
So it sounds to me like you're wanting to do is drive the publishers into embedding archival articles within new articles, right?
Yes, exactly.
So, like, what if there was a related articles section, but in the article builder itself? Like, as you're writing the article, once the SEO automation gets done, it could comb through that, use it to find related stories, and then the publishers could see that as they're building it and integrate that.
Right. So, in other words, just display the related stories results on the article editor somewhere. Right. And then they can maybe check boxes next to the ones they want to include. It could be a block on Gutenberg, and then they drag it up between paragraphs. I've seen that on a lot of sites I like. They'll kind of have an embedded link between paragraphs. Right. It's segmented. It has even the teaser, so it's clear this is a different article. But yeah, it's like something highly related to what you're reading. There's a lot that needs to be done here. And the first thing that we got to do is just continue to work on the NLP algorithm that we use this program Spacey for. And it's the same kind of relational calculator that Facebook uses for connecting all the people in the world, basically. So we're able to make these calculations really quickly. And when a new article is published, it can be compared against all the articles in the database really efficiently. And this is just an ongoing effort at our hometown. It's something that I believe sets us apart. Again, something we're not competing on. We are trying to innovate and do something different. I'll let you guys go then. Thank you so much, and appreciate all your contributions this week, Tyler and Chris. Those were great articles.
Sure thing.
And thanks for everyone's reactions. Thanks for watching Today in News Tech, the podcast covering innovation in digital journalism. You can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and subscribe on YouTube or any of your favorite podcast apps. We'll see you tomorrow.
At our hometown, we help newspapers build WordPress websites, design native apps, and develop digital subscription models. If you are interested in a free prototype of your publication on WordPress, go to ourhometown.com and click the Contact Us button.